and welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. And if you're new to the channel, hi, I'm April, and I love doing videos all in the arena of a lifestyle enriched in motivation, inspiration, and mentorship. And today's video is going to be a real fun one, and I think a little bit of a juicy one, to make sure that you got yourself settled in and just ready for a good, juicy old conversation and another upload in the series of Let's Chat About It. And what we're going to be talking about today, me and my special guest that is about women's interpersonal communications, relationships. Yeah, you got the gist. We're going to be talking about the pitfalls and the celebrations. So as I think that this is going to be one we're going to really dive into, make sure you get yourself a drink of whatever you like and sit back, relax. And I do hope you enjoyed the video. And I hope you also consider and then do subscribe to the channel, because I would love to have you here, because as I always say, there's always room in the suite. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up our special guest, and let me see if you can probably guess who it is. Hey, Mia.
Hello, April. Hello, Motivation Suite. How's everybody doing?
Woo! She came back, y'all. So I am so excited for our topic today, and boy, is it a juicy one.
Ooh.
So, as I've already shared in the community, we're going to be talking about interpersonal relationships, women's interpersonal relationships in particular, since we are celebrating Women's History Month, right?
Yes,
and Women's History every day. So I'm so excited for this topic. And as I shared with the community, we are going to be talking about a plethora of things. So for all of you who did not get a chance to catch our last video, this again is Mia, my best friend. And she has been so gracious to give some time to have another conversation and thought with me. So I'm so excited to have you here.
Yes, and I am excited to be here on the platform. I know that your guests are just going to have a great time with our topic on today. So I'm ready to dive in.
Let's do it. Okay, so what I want to really bring home is one of the things that we've been following me for a while in my podcast journey, and really honestly on the YouTube channel journey as well. One thing I really enjoy talking about, discussing about is communication, and anything that brings ability to have inspiration and uplift conversation, and just trying to better ourselves and better our relationships with each other. So I find it to be extremely important. I feel that after these, we're still going through it, aren't we? Over these last couple of years, a lot of things have really come into play of what is really, truly important in life. And I think relationships are really right up there.
Yes.
So I think that as we are celebrating this month, I would be feeling a little bit amiss if we didn't kind of tackle in a little bit deeper into some areas that can be quite challenging when it comes to all of the uplifting power of all of what is woman.
Oh, yes.
You know?
I am woman, hear me roar.
Yeah. And what it takes to get that roar. Because there is so many things that we deal with. And so, of course, I would love to start in with all the good, wonderful, glorifying stuff. But I think we're going to go ahead and hit on some of the challenging areas first,
Okay.
and then kind of ease our way into, repairing some of the maybe traumatic conversation we may have, and kind of get it up into where we back in up spirits again on the way out. So I think that sounds good to me. I hope I'm hearing it okay from everybody here on that.
Yes.
Okay, so what I was thinking as, when I was really looking into diving in about the things that are important about interpersonal relationships for women, one of the elements that I look at is the different aspects of the pitfalls that may occur, in where it makes it a little bit more difficult to really go in deep with a relationship and really be participative in that relationship. What it means to be there for someone, and be there for the right reasons. Be there for the authentic reasons. Be there because it's something that you feel connected and drawn to do. And I think that some of the pitfalls that occur and what adds a hindrance to that aspect is such things as like competition, and usually that competition stemming from some sense of insecurity. What do you think about that?
You hit on a key word when you said authentic, because sometimes as women, we have a difficult time, a challenging time, just being our true selves. So with our relationships, I really think that sometimes we go into it with the wrong perspective, the wrong motives. And because of that, we aren't really genuine. I know personally, I've had some relationships that have only been seasonal. I was only friends with that person for a short period of time. And then after that time was over, unfortunately, I don't even hear from those people. I don't see those people. There's no connection whatsoever. And, it hurt me at first, but I had to realize that that person was only in my life temporarily. And at that time, I wasn't necessarily my authentic self. I think that now that I'm more authentic and more real about who I am and what I want, and if I had discovered that beforehand, I don't know if I would have even had the relationships that I did in the past.
That's a really good point there. I mean, it's really about taking that sense of self and knowing and understanding when something isn't working for you. And, if you're not getting a whole lot of pros out of a relationship because everything is perfect, then, you really have to look at where are you really putting your energy into,
Right.
And I think that is important. So that's a really good point. And you're right. I mean, it can be difficult sometimes cutting people, loose out of your situation when they're not there to really support you and uplift you. And I always like to feel that whoever I want in my life, I want them to also make or have me come into the point where I feel really good about myself, right? That I don't
absolutely
second guessing myself, and there's nothing there that allows me to have any loss of confidence because I'm putting my energy into someone and caring about what they thinking they're here for me and they're really not, right?
Right. Yes.
Because sometimes not everybody who is there for you is really there for you.
That's true. That's true. That's so true. That's so true.
Those out.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting because being in the military, you move, you transition so much. And it's easy to kind of get in that cycle of having those relationships that are not necessarily permanent in nature.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't have any control over that because, again, being in the military, you have to do what Uncle Sam says. So when Uncle Sam says move, you've got to move. But, I do think that those relationships are definitely meant to help you to grow and to mature and to just really discover who you are. I'm grateful that I was able to have those type of relationships because, looking back now, it really helped to form me into the woman that I am today. So I'm grateful for that.
That is a blessing. And one thing about the military, and of course, like we shared before, that we're both veterans and we both had very long-standing, I would say, really good careers in the military. And there's always challenges here and there, but overall, I think really good careers and got a lot more out of it than we lost.
Yes,
and and I know for me, and my perspective of being really affiliated with the military since I was the age of 3, I have that already embedded concept once I joined the military of that kind of, moving from place to place. Every 2 to 3 years, you're probably out of here doing something else, meeting somebody new. And so it can, really, you can look at it 2 ways. One, it could be a challenge to keep certain friendships because, once you move, right? And you could be way across the world from each other. But I think it's important that if a relationship or someone who is good to you and who you really vibe with, then you really need to take stock in, making sure you stay communicated with them.
That would help.
and then on the flip side, not be too sensitive when maybe you haven't heard from them for a while because that life is happening and there's a lot of challenges in that as well. So I remember sometimes so funny things where like, I haven't heard from you in such time, and like, well, you could have picked up the phone too. I mean, I'm over here, sitting there slaying dragons and stuff. I'm not just sitting here, hanging out and partying, So yeah, it's really important to really, staying connected with those individuals. When you are, like you said, like Uncle Sam said, it's time to go. There is no, hey, can I just hang out? Well, you can hang out, but of course, it's going to go through a whole lot of process, and eventually you got to go because you're not homesteading for life, so.
That's
and
true.
eventually people do leave, right? Anyway, so.
And I think sometimes too, as you change, as you grow, as you mature, there are some relationships that are simply just not going to grow with you.
Yes.
I think about, some of the friendships that I had as a child, being in school and high school. Some of those people I were really close to, and our lives just went in different directions.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that, anything happened, anything was wrong. It's just that simply we just took different directions in, our paths for life, and it just didn't correlate anymore.
Right.
So we don't have anything in common anymore, other than the fact that we're from the same town, essentially.
Yeah.
So, there are those times when that happens as well, but you just have to appreciate the season that you're in and the time that you're in, the people that are around you now, and just value those friendships and relationships when you have them.
I could not agree with you more. I really could not agree with you more. I mean, I think are an anomaly in some cases, especially for me, because usually people don't last more than 2 months, or maybe that's relationships on the coupling side. I digress. But you are literally probably my one lasting relationship in the way that we are and how we have stayed so connected over the years. And I'm so grateful for that, because, it's just not very often how you meet really good people who are there for you through all of the different trials and tribulations, the different seasons in your own life and what you're going through. I mean, we've seen some things from each other, and just having that constant there is so supportive, and so understanding that not everybody necessarily has that. I would tell you, you need to really be evaluating your friendships, because you need to get that, because it really the difference of your life being really, really, really long and not as enjoyable, and really, really long but enjoyable. And besides, you gotta have someone to tell your secrets to. So
that's true.
And some of the other things too, when I think about the competition side, right, and those things stemming from insecurities and being such a hindrance to a really relatable possible relationship, it's just really so unfortunate. I think about how sad that is when you feel you have to put yourself in a position where you have to be better than somebody else. And when you're in a friendship or a woman relationship, however that works out for you, because this could be a family type of relationship as well, there is so much relatability between the two, just for the fact that we're women in this world, that we should be able to connect more on. And you should have a safe place, and there's a thing called the sisterhood that, everybody should have. And it's just so unfortunate when we don't. And a lot of times those are rooted in issues that come from some past situation that rears its head in your current situation, I don't know. It just really is unfortunate with that. And, and also the concept of jealousy and the envy and wanting what someone else has, may not even know how they even got it, even if you are in a close relationship, especially one that goes on for years and years and years, right? Because sometimes people will show you, just what's the best of things, right? Not really always the challenges. And we were talking about that earlier, about sometimes people like to only share certain things about a journey and not everything.
That's true. That's so true.
And you sometimes feel like you're out on your own. And I wish that we as women would do more to talk and share things that we experience, even globally, out, just out, even outside of the one-on-one relationships you may have, because oh my gosh, it would be so helpful if they would do that, because there's like a lot of things that I think about, right now off the top of my head, but I won't go through all of them, because we might get a little bit personal here, and you don't need all that, but I think like, well, I wish I would say something about this, like you experienced this. Why is it now that you're knowing about this, and I should have done this 20 years ago, or whatever the case is.
That's true. And it's kind of funny. It's almost like it's a dying art, so to speak. I remember when I was growing up, you would have older women that were seasoned, that wouldn't mind pulling you to the side and giving you some little bits of wisdom. I remember when I was getting ready to graduate high school, and I was going into the military. Of course, everybody was really excited for me to go into the military, and they wanted me to do well and all that. But I remember one lady, bless her heart, she's gone on to heaven now, but she pulled me to the side and she said, "Mia, You getting ready to go out to this cold, cruel world. You keep your pants up and you keep your dress down. I never forgot that. You know, I didn't really quite understand what she meant at that time.
Oh, I got
what she means now, okay? And I mean, you know, we laugh at that, but that's the kind of thing that we need to be telling our young girls, our young women. You know, we need to be real with them. Just tell them how life is. Tell them, you know, the challenges they're going to face and how they should positively get through those things. So, you know, I definitely miss having those seasoned conversations with women that just didn't mind telling you like it was.
Yeah. And, you know, it's so funny. Oh, that's a good one, though. I would use that now. It's still relevant. I love that. One that I used to hear a lot is that, you know, there's always going to be someone who's better, smarter, prettier, more talented, more this, more that. So instead of being so concerned to comparing yourself with others, really work with you, right? Enhance you and make you be the best you that you are. And those who are supposed to come around will come around. And those who are not, they'll weed on out. And that's what you want. You want that weed on out situation, because not everybody, like I said earlier, is not for you, you know. And, you know, and a lot of times, you know, you just see individuals who really kind of nest in that jealousy and competition area. They're just unhappy. There's just a lot of work being jealous. You know what I'm saying?
It is a lot of work. It takes a lot out of you. Yeah, and you know, we're laughing about it, but in all sincerity, I know I've been jealous of people. I've been envious of people because I look at, you know, some women and they're just drop dead gorgeous. They got men falling all over them. It seems like every opportunity that's great, they are one step ahead of it. And I'm just like, wow, when is it going to be my turn? But you know, as I'm growing, as I'm learning, I'm beginning to stop comparing myself to other people and start comparing myself to me, to the good qualities that I have, to the good attributes that I have, to the good characteristics that I have. Why not compare yourself to you?
Yes.
So yes, absolutely. You know, because comparison, jealousy, envy, that's all a trap.
Yes.
That's really all a trap. And unfortunately, so many of us have fallen into that. You know, again, I said that I've done that. And sometimes I still do it, you know, especially starting a business. I look at women who have this empire, so to speak, of whatever their business is. And I'm like, wow. How do they do that? You know,
right.
And I'm struggling just trying to build my community right now. But it seems like overnight they just became a success. So yes, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And you know, it's so funny you say that, because here's the thing. So many of us experience that, right? Like, so many of us feel that way. I mean, there's many times I'm sure that I felt yes. I'm sitting there like, yes. Where I have been envious as well. So, you know, it is a human trait. It's just not one that you want to stay in. It is one that is absolute energy. And if you're so busy worried about what someone else is doing, you're not watering what's going on in your area, you know? And so I guess intellectually we know this, right? But sometimes it does rear its head, you know, but to be honest, to be transparent, yes, I have too. I've had those moments. I don't like to talk about it.
You know, just the other day, you and I were talking, and I don't mind sharing this with the Motivation Suite community, but we were talking the other day, and if you recall, I was telling you about a person that I saw on social media that's pretty well known, pretty famous, and literally this person was doing a little bit of everything. And I'm just like, what in the world? I would never have done that, but this person had over 1,000 people viewing them live. And it was funny because you said, well, if you felt that way, why did you continue to watch? And I really couldn't answer that question, because I'm like, I think I was just in amazement and shock. This person was on social media doing what they were doing. Literally, they were drinking, they were smoking, they was cussing, had a lot of just things that I thought were inappropriate for social media. And these people just kept coming on live, kept coming on. And I'm just like, I don't believe this.
Yeah.
Here I, my mantra, my image is different than that. I'm not going to do that. I'm never going to do that. Mm-hmm. But obviously it worked for her,
right?
Because she had thousands of people on there, and I'm just like, I was in amazement. I'm like, really? And it was so cute because you said, well, if you felt that way, why did you stay on there? But who knows? Maybe those 1,000 people felt the same way I did.
That's
doing this. I gotta keep watching to see how it ends up.
That is so good. You're like, well, if you were shocked, imagine how many people other than you were probably shocked out there watching.
Possibly
sometimes
so,
they're like a train wreck, like you just can't look away. So but if you found some humor in it, or you found something that was relatable, that was said in between smokes and puffs, then you know what, maybe that's what needed to happen in that moment, right? So but I hear you. It is kind of funny. Sometimes you do wonder, like, what has someone got to do? But and it, which is really good when you talk about comparing yourself, you have to make a discerning, is that something you really want to be doing, right? Is that really for you? And if it's not for you, then however they may be able to do something, whatever reason they're doing it, it's their platform, that's great, go ahead, that's good for them, but it's not going to translate the same for you because it ain't naturally you, and that was naturally them, and that's why they got 1,200 or however many people watching the live on a Monday night.
Yeah.
That's pretty dang good. We need to contact that person and see what they've been doing. Because if you do pull in and you're not a football game, that's pretty good. But sometimes, which is really funny, just to talk about that in particular, sometimes how you just need to digress a little bit and just need your brain to not be working at a certain capacity. Yeah. And so when you intake some of that kind of stuff, if it's, obviously within reason, but if you do, then sometimes you can find some humor in it, then that's okay too, because you're getting a relaxation. You may not go back there again, but it served its purpose.
Yes, I guess you're right.
Now, another thing, which is really, I guess, even sadder than all of what we just talked about, is that wasn't rough enough. It's definitely issues, I think, that are such a hindrance to, especially women relationships. And I don't know, maybe at some point we should bring a couple men on and talk to them about them, get this, perspective from them. But I think one of the things that is difficult for us is unhealed trauma and experiences. Mm-hmm. I think that, and that it goes for any relationship. Again, just speaking specifically for women, when you're not a healed individual, and it doesn't mean you're going to be a perfect walking being, but when you're not a healed individual, it's kind of hard to show up in the world in a productive manner sometimes, when you talk about a positive way. Now, and I'll take that back for a second. You could be productive, right? Depending on what productive is. If getting up and going to work and doing your job and not having an issue there is productive, then that's a win, right? Because sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes all you can do is get up. Sometimes all you can do is open up your eyes. Sometimes all you can do is just brush your teeth. Maybe that's all things you can do in that day. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I don't want to take from any of that, because when we talk about unhealed trauma and experiences, and this is why I separate them two, because even though obviously unhealed experiences is trauma, right? It's an issue that you had that is affecting you in a certain way, that's usually a negative way because of trauma, and it does resonate in a way if you don't get that situation healed and fixed for you. And for every individual, it is different.
Yeah.
So, those are things that are important. So when you are to a place where you're unable to really pick yourself up and be able to, do your affirmations, do your mantras, read the Bible, read whatever you need to read to fortify you, to get you to the next level, then you start looking at what you need to be doing as far as maybe seeking help, seeing a therapist, seeing your doctor to get a way of, some community around you to be able to heal yourself, right? Because, it is so sad. And I from the bottom of my heart, I feel this way. It's so sad to have so many people walking around with unhealed trauma and unhealed experiences, because you are only hurting yourself more by not getting those things taken care of. And healing doesn't necessarily mean one session. It doesn't necessarily mean 6 months seeing someone, if that's the route you're going. It could be a lifetime thing. But as long as you are doing things that are putting you more in the positive and not in the deficit column, I think that's a win, you know? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree that it is a step by step, minute by minute, day by day, week by week process. I've gone through some pretty traumatic experiences in my life, and I'm healing. I'm still in the process of healing. I'm still in the process of letting go. I'm still in the process of moving forward. But the key is that I'm moving. I'm healing. So I'm not staying stuck there. It wasn't always that way.
Right.
And just to be, I don't mind opening up and sharing. One of the things that I had to experience was the loss of both of my parents. I experienced losing them literally a year after one another. So that was pretty difficult for me. I'm an only child, and that was extremely hard for me. My father had been sick for quite a long time. My mother had been sick also. When my father passed away, he was in a nursing home, and that was tough because I wasn't there. I always felt like I should have been there. I always felt like I hated that he died alone, essentially. And after he passed away, it seemed that my mother was, she was coming on up and up with her health. And then all of a sudden, it just came crashing down. And when I got word that she was ill, within hours, she was gone. So it was extremely traumatic for me, just having to, not even really processing the fact that I didn't have a father anymore. Now here I am trying to deal with not having a mother, not having anybody. So it took a long time, and still it hurts. It still hurts. I mean, there are times now when, I reach to go to the phone to try to call my mother or my father, and I can't. Right. Or something, takes place, and I'm like, wow, I wish I could share this with my parents, and I can't. Or I would just love to hear their voice, and I can't. So yeah, it definitely, and I'm sure there are some of those who are listening or watching this, you've gone through losses, and it's definitely a day by day process, minute by minute, hour by hour, however you want to break it down. But it does get better. It does get easier. Just a couple of weeks ago, I went home to visit their gravesite. I hadn't been home in a long time because part of my trauma was just, I felt as if I went home, I would kind of relive that whole experience again. So I was able to go home, and that was healing for me. So I think that, whatever you have to do as a person, as an individual, to bring healing into you, that's what you do. And never let anybody tell you that you've grieved a long time, or you grieved enough and you need to get over it. Never let anybody do that, because they don't have any control over your experiences, over your pain, over how you deal with it. That's Absolutely. You. That's a personal walk that you have to go through. I remember, I've had people tell me, why are you still upset about that? Your parents have been gone for X amount of years.
Wow.
Those were my parents. Those were my parents. You can't tell me how long to cry or how long to feel sad. Those were my parents. Oh, you should get over it. Life is too short. Life is short. Yes, it is short. But, never let anybody tell you, how long to grieve, because, that's up to you. But the point is, you got to be able to find those healthy relationships. We're talking about relationships tonight. Find those healthy relationships that can help you to come out of it, so you just don't stay stuck and literally wither away. I was withering away. When my parents passed, I was literally withering away, and I didn't even realize how detrimentally hurt I was. Yeah. I was functioning, I was existing, but I wasn't living.
Yes.
So you definitely want to surround yourself, if you're in a situation where you're hurting, where you're grieving, where you're dealing with loss, and I've had a lot of losses, unfortunately. You want to surround yourself with people that will be there to edify you, to help encourage you, to get you out of the house when you don't feel like getting out of the house, get you out of the bed, help you to get dressed when you just feel like staying in the bed and eating yourself to an oblivion. You know, you need those people to really be there and be your accountability partner.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mia, for sharing that, because, you know, I think that for, you know, there's going to be someone that's watching this that's going to probably definitely be able to resonate what you're saying. You know, I resonate for the concept of losing my father. So I understand, you know, it's an everyday walk, you know, and it's something that when you are not able to put yourself in a position, because it never goes away. It is always going to be a concept. And I said this from the very, you know, beginning of even my situation, is that it's a new normal that you have to now establish. And it's not one you've never experienced before, right? So, I mean, you have a situation where not one, but both. And being an only child, yeah, it's a bit tough, you know, to say the least. So you need to let me know on the slide who said that stuff to you too. I think I have the phone calls to make on the real once this live is over.
You know, but one thing I did want to share, and you touched upon it a little bit. For me, I did get counseling. I sought out professional help as far as getting some counseling, just to really help me to be able to process and to really get through, you know, the new norm that you had alluded to. So, you know, I encourage you, regardless of whatever walk of life you're in, whatever stage of life you're in, please seek the help if you need the help, because it definitely is worth it. You know, I thank goodness for the people that was brought into my life that can help me kind of go through that season of my life when things weren't really that good. And even now, sometimes I still, you know, go through a season of sadness. It's getting close to the anniversary of my parents, you know, passing away. So that's always a tough time for me. But thankfully, through my counseling, I was able to get some tools to really help me to kind of process that mentally, and to kind of shift my thinking into something more positive during that time.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, in those situations, loss is deep, and you don't ever know how long you may be going through that loss, you know, whatever that loss may be. And, you know, you owe it to yourself to do what you can to get yourself in a place, because the one thing that, you know, I remember, like, when something was difficult for me to do when my father had passed, is look up at the sky. Like, who would have ever thought that would be something that would be very difficult for me to do? And it was hard because I knew he was up there. And there was a shift that happened for me, you know, and it was hard to kind of put together the fact that he's no longer here anymore. And he was such a big personality, and it just was unexpected. And so it took me a good couple of weeks. I mean, you know, there were certain things I was not able to do and function in as far as preparing for when it was time to say the formal goodbyes, you know, and paying your respects. And so, you know, and sometimes, you know, in that moment, you don't even know how you're going to come out of it. You know, you don't even know what that's going to be like. So, you know, getting proper healing and taking the time, and healing can be whatever it is for you. Some people may need to actually speak to a grief counselor. Someone may need to speak to a therapist they maybe already maybe seeing, or maybe just a friend or family member, whatever works for them to help them through those situations. Because, you know, it's trauma. It is trauma. And trauma can be such an awful combination to experience when you're trying to still be present and continue to keep living, because when they're gone, you still have this life you have to live until it's time for you to be called home, you know? And so that in itself can be very difficult, and it can cause you to be closed off to other individuals. It can also cause you sometimes, when you're so deep in grief, to not always see the pitfalls of individuals around you, you know, because you are now vulnerable to having to deal with that. And that would have to be your number one situation to work through, right? So yeah, those are definitely situations I think that can definitely be a hindrance to being able to move forward in positive relationships in some cases. And I'm telling you, be blessed and grateful for the good people you have in your life, because not everybody can say that same thing, and you'd be amazed sometimes of the stories that people tell, or the people who you thought were there for you in certain situations where you experienced some trauma and then found out they were not, or individuals who took disadvantage of your grief, and your time of not being hyper vigilant of their actions and wrongdoings.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. So
that does happen. That does happen.
It does. And and I like to say that karma is and it does come back to those who deserve it. And the unfortunate thing is sometimes you're not able to see that karma play out, but I believe that because those who do ill intent, especially intentionally, the universe will take care of that. Even if I'm not able to physically see it, I know it's happening. And what's more important is they'll know why it's happening.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, a situation that really causes a lot of strife when it comes to building in relationships with that. And in particular, in women's relationships as well. And another pitfall I'm thinking that, as I kind of glide into my thoughts of all the things that could be an issue, toxic relationships. So why don't we just head that one off on the path?
Wow, okay.
We've been talking about that into Wilson and a few of these, pitfalls, but yeah, toxic relationships. Got to get rid of them. Got to go. Individuals who are maybe suck up more air than they should.
Oh, wow.
Where you cannot exist and coexist in the same participation of that relationship, because a relationship is just that, whether it's a platonic relationship or a romantic relationship, you have to participate. It's not going to work if you don't. Everybody's got to participate, right? So it can't be a one-sided thing, and if you find yourself in a relationship where the person is either talking behind your back and gossiping about you, and then in your face smiling at you and saying, "Hey girl, what we gonna be doing this such and such," you got to cut them out, and there are signs of toxic people, and one that definitely comes to mind is the self-absorbing of them. They're not able to be there for you whenever you have issues, or every time you're picking up that phone when they got a problem, or you see their name cross that, and every time you need someone, they know they're picking up that phone. So yeah, I think toxic relationships, you got to cut those out, because those are such a confidence stealer. And it's wasted energy on someone who really could care less whether or not you're here or not. And if you know those toxic people, a lot of times once you cut out, they'll try to make you feel bad about it. And if you're not confident in yourself that, oh, I'm about to cut you out, they'll just find somebody else to victimize. What's your thoughts on that?
It's I was actually trying to think of an example of when I had a toxic relationship, but specifically with another female. Thank goodness I can say it's been a little while since I've had to deal with that. But one of the things I think that is a challenge is just admitting that you're in a toxic relationship, because sometimes you get into this cycle, this routine with this person, and it becomes the norm. You get used to them treating you that way. You get used to them talking to you that way. You get used to them not showing up for you. You get used to them abusing you to the point where you feel like, oh, that's just how that person is. That's just how this relationship is. This is how we are. But that's not normal.
No.
That's not healthy. And so, the first thing you got to realize or recognize is that it isn't healthy. And you deserve better. You deserve more.
Yes.
Again, I can honestly say this. It's been a little while since I've been in a toxic relationship, but I do recall that, when I was in a toxic relationship, it was definitely one-sided. I was the one that was always giving. I was the one that was doing. I was the one that was sacrificing. That person, reaped the benefits of my labor. But when I needed that person or expected that person to show up or to show support or whatever, that person was a ghost. And, for whatever reason, I kept being drawn to them because I really think that I really admired their boldness, their what I call strength. I saw them as somebody that, I looked up to because they just appeared to be so together and they had it going on, and I wanted to do what they were doing to the point that I just wanted to be around them. And it was literally sucking the life out of me. They literally grabbed onto me, held onto me like a leech, and was sucking the life out of me. They were definitely toxic to the point where, I didn't even recognize I was being drained.
Wow.
Until it took somebody else to come into the situation and say, Mia, why are you hanging around that person? You're a whole lot better than that person is. You don't really need that person.
Yeah.
And I said,
go figure.
You know what? I never really thought about it from that perspective. And I started looking at things, and I started making a list. I'm like, well, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. Maybe this is not a good situation for me. And the crazy thing is, when I started to pull away from that person, they didn't want me to pull away. It was the strangest thing.
Oh yeah.
It was the strangest thing. It was like, they needed that energy that I was bringing to help them to look good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I definitely think the first thing you need to do is identify those unhealthy, unfruitful relationships. And sometimes you feel like you can't get out. Right. Sometimes you feel like you can't escape. Maybe they have some type of leverage or something that, possibly maybe they're holding over you. I don't know. But you need to try to get help. Ask for help. Seek help. Because in the long run, it's not going to end up in a good situation.
No, it's not. And you're so right. I mean, it's funny how you say that about the concept, how they realize, oh, a good thing is on its way gone. Mm-hmm. It's like their antennas go up and they want to try to
literally,
get back in.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a very familiar trait when it comes to toxic individuals. I think when you ask a few people who've experienced that, they definitely feel like, oh yeah, they try to do this as soon as I get, or make you feel like something's wrong with you, and why are you not calling me, or why are you not hanging out with me, and what's going on, all that nonsense. Yeah, it's yeah.
Something I thought about is in the workplace, those toxic relationships sometimes you get into in the workplace. Maybe you work for somebody that's your manager, your supervisor, and you feel like you can't tell them no. You feel like, oh, I gotta show up, I gotta do what they say because I'm going to get fired. And that is a toxic relationship. If they're wrong, they're wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember one time. And I remember one time I was working for someone, and they asked me to do something that it was just against my morals. It was against my values. It was against who I was. And I had to tell them, I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that.
God, you gotta do that.
Yeah. And they said, what? And I said, I'm sorry. I understand you're my manager. I understand you're my superior. I understand you write my evaluations, but I'm not doing that because I don't believe in it.
Right.
So and whatever you got to do, you got to do.
Yeah. And that's it. Sometimes they don't do anything. When individuals challenge, sometimes they don't do anything. And then sometimes they do whatever they are going to do. And the bottom line is you've already stood up for yourself. You've already made the stance. So at this point, anything comes after that, you've accepted it. It doesn't matter. It won't resonate.
It's like bullying in a sense.
Yes.
It's really like bullying. I think about, how a lot of times we talk about bullying, we talk about young people in school, but adults can be bullied too.
Yes, because
adults
are like bullied
too. Yeah, so adults can be bullied too. And the thing about a bully is oftentimes a bully is just as scared, if not as scared as you are. Oftentimes a bully is less confident than you are. Oftentimes a bully has absolutely no clue as to what they're doing, but they have to make themselves mean or angry or have this tough persona, because if you knew the real them, it would show weakness in their perspective. So,
and it's always a concept of how small can I make you in order to inflate me?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So it's a never-ending cycle also when you're dealing with toxicity, because it's just all that seems to be left and available is toxicity. There's
Yes.
if you try, and sometimes when you are in a situation where you're kind of identifying it, maybe it's not the best relationship that I should be in, when dealing with friendships in particular, your initial response to that may be to try to kind of hang in there and not cut bait so soon, right? Because maybe you think that you are overanalyzing the situation, maybe you're being a little too hard on them, or maybe you're falling more deeply than you realize to their sob stories or sad stories, their issues that they continue to keep having, as if you don't have anything going on.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, those are things that you want to look for when you're dealing with toxicity. And sometimes anything that you feel innately doesn't feel right to you usually isn't. That's your intuition, and you really should pay attention to that. You really should. So definitely those elements of toxic relationships, you got to cut them out. And there's just, and trust me, you won't worry about feeling guilty about it, because at the end of the day, they were not your friend in the first place. Because if they were, these things would not be happening. And maybe maybe some things that they're dealing with is competition, obviously, or envy, or jealousy, or unhealed trauma, or unhealed experiences, and that has turned them into an individual over time to be doing what they are. Because I don't necessarily believe that you're born that way. Experiences and things that you go through is what, in my opinion, carves you into who you're going to be, right?
Yes.
But even with all of those things, does not give you the right, or the innate ability to treat others, unfairly or wrong, or take it out on them, because you can't take it out on the person that's caused that for you, right?
That's true.
Because all you're doing is just creating more enemies for you. I used to always have the saying, you think you're having a bad day now, you bring that over here, you're going to have a worse day when you walk away. And I mean, that's just what it is. Because I ain't got time for it. I ain't got time. I need to sip on that for a minute. I was thinking of some things.
Oh, wow.
You have a target, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I've said this before. In a not so gracious moment, but yeah, so definitely got to watch out for those pitfalls. Those pitfalls are something else. But your life will be so much better for it. And like I said, they'll find the next victim. So hopefully, if the next victim has been paying attention, they'll see those things, those signs before they get too deep themselves. So yeah. So for those people who are those kind of people, get some help. Honestly, get some help. Do something. Get yourself right, so you can be right. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be losing in the end. I mean, there's going to be people who lose along the way, but see, they'll get to reclaim themselves back. But the further you go down that road, the more loss you're going to get, and maybe even irreparable, if I say,
Yes.
So yeah, it's not fun to be the only one by yourself unless you just choose to be that way. And if it's because you're not a good person and not able to, functionally have relationships in a way that are meaningful and authentic, and you're always looking to get them before they get you, it's a lonely place to be.
Yes.
Lonely place to be. So yeah. So now when I'm thinking about that and all of those pitfalls, because what's now coming to mind is, really where those things can start. So there's always a beginning to a situation, right? Just like they say, when people act out and stuff like that in the streets or whatever, that's usually what happened at home, It has to start somewhere, right? People don't just become what they are, or, if they choose to walk that negative path of life. But what would you say is the single most initial important relationship for a woman?
In my personal opinion, I would absolutely say that the single most important initial relationship is that with your parents, your family. As you were sharing, that a lot of times people, if you talk to them, they will always say that if there is some type of trouble in their life, or they've gone down the wrong path, or they've gotten into, a situation, they'll be quick to say that, well, you got to remember, I was born such and such, and I was raised such and such, and my mother wasn't there, and my father wasn't a real father, and they have all these things that they've gone through. And I am not diminishing that by any way, shape, or form. If that is you, definitely I empathize with that.
Right.
But I also know from personal experience that you do not have to be where you were born and raised in. You do not have to take on the qualities, the characteristics of your environment. And I'm going to explain to you why I say that. Because when I was growing up, my parents were middle class. We had a nice home, comfortable home. We weren't rich, but we were always comfortable. I never had to really go without anything, thank goodness. Yeah. And I did have both of my parents when I was coming up. Right. But what I will say is that my father, he was on drugs. He took drugs, he sold drugs, he was out in the streets. There were a lot of things that he did, that because of his drug addiction, that really hurt our family. Right. And, a lot of people I don't really tell that to. A lot of people, would look at me and say, really, your dad was that? Yes. My dad had a lot of women, literally I was with him at times when he was, doing drug exchanges and selling drugs. I've seen him with the crack pipe. I've seen him rolling joints, and, all those things. When my father first got sick, he got sick because he had gotten a hold of some bad drugs. And he was also taking high blood pressure medication. The two didn't mix. So that was the start of his physical health demise. And, I didn't make that choice to do the same thing that I saw. Matter of fact, I made the choice. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do the opposite of that. Here again, I saw my dad in the streets. I saw my dad doing drugs. I saw my dad hanging out. I saw my dad with other women. I saw my dad, just not in a good place in his life. But I didn't choose to do that. Right. And I didn't hold that over his head because I understood that whatever challenges he was going through, they had nothing to do with me. I wanted better for myself. And, I'm grateful that I have established better for myself. So you don't have to be a replica of your environment. You don't have to stay stuck there. That's a choice. Yeah. That's an absolute choice. And sometimes people make that into an excuse. I could have easily said, you know what? I ain't going to do nothing because I ain't seen my daddy do nothing. He wasn't there, so I ain't going to show up. I could have easily said that. Oh, he was smoking dope, so I'm going to smoke dope. But I didn't do that. Right. So there's got to be a drive inside of you that makes you want to do better, be better, and show up better. Absolutely. So if that's not something that's inside of you, then I encourage you to connect with somebody that's got that drive, that's got that mentality, that's got that mindset that can help you get out and to get unstuck. Because once you get stuck in that situation, it's hard to get out of that cycle. And it literally becomes a generational cycle, a generational curse. Sure. Your dad did it, your granddad did it, your great-granddad did it, your mother did it, your auntie's doing it, whatever. But don't use it as an excuse, not to be better and not to be greater.
Yes, absolutely to all of that. Absolutely. I mean, it's true, and I know for me, I feel like the single most important relationship. Did I say important twice? I think I did. That's me, just really important. Emphasis on that asterisk. But I feel for a woman is the mother. And understanding that not everybody grows up with their mother. So if you're in a situation that is the case, then whoever that maternal individual is, whether it be an aunt, an older sister, an older cousin, or grandmother, whoever that person in the family is to you is the first of what shows you how you're supposed to show up in the world. You look to them as to how they navigate situations, the decisions they make. It's a whole situation when someone tells you to do what I say and not what I do, right? That's a conflict for an individual,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm seeing you doing all this stuff, but you're telling me I should be doing this, but
That's
I'm
so
seeing
good.
you do this. And
Yeah.
everybody says, I'm a visual person. So what does that mean? I'm watching your actions. I may not be listening to what you're telling me.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
Because listening is an active situation. So,
Absolutely.
but if I'm seeing you, and yeah, you may be talking to me, but I'm seeing what you're showing me, and therefore that's really what I should be doing, right? And that is what you're instilling in these young ones that come up in that kind of a situation. So consistency is important, and
Amen.
for there being, the woman in the house, whoever that may be for them, that's who they see, because they're looking at whoever maybe looks like them, whoever they, whatever role they're going to play as they get older, and that's what they're looking for, right? And so at this point, as you're going through your journey of growing up, you're looking at either things you're going to emulate or the things you're actually going to deviate from. And you're right, it is an absolute choice. There is not a choice in the formative years, but it does become a choice to become an adult, because everybody has a story, right? Some more crucial than others. And then you have other people who have lily lives and it's great and wonderful over there and they ain't got no issue, until they wind up on Dateline for some situation. And everybody know, oh God, we have problems here. I watch a lot of Dateline, by the way. Never should watch alone. Anyways. Enough about that. So I think that it's just so important that whatever that relationship is for you, and if you're, let's say, if you are a young girl and your mother is not in the picture, but your father's in the picture, then your father's going to be the person that you're going to look to, because he is the, parental in the family. So, or the ones to look up to. So that parent dynamic is something. And, when we delve back into the situation with the relationships of mothers and daughters, they can be a tricky one sometimes. I think it's so wonderful, though, when you hear stories of young girls who have like these open, close relationships with their mothers, right? I think it is such a beautiful thing, because my goodness, everything that you could ever need will come from that person, right? Because that's who you grew up with, right? So that's what you're looking for. The validation starts there. The self-esteem starts there. The confidence starts there. That is the person that's going to be instilling that in you. And so it is such a travesty when you have to try to navigate those waters when you don't have that. So for every single woman out here who had a beautiful relationship with their mother, be so grateful for that, because not many people have it. And if you are a woman who no longer has your mother here with you, and how sad that is, because that is hard, rough. I have not experienced that, and I can only imagine, like your puppets, but they were good to you, and you've had a good relationship. Cherish that, because it is so. It's such an unfortunate situation when you don't have that. So, those are things that are important. And, it's so funny when you talk about some of the stories of, sometimes, your parents might be doing a lot of wilding out, but they show you that love. And there's some situations where they're wilding out and they ain't showing you any love, So you're right. It's a choice. All right. You have to make a choice. Because I don't buy into the concept that just because you grew up into a situation means you have to be that situation. And I know, like, you're right. That is used as an excuse a lot of the time. Like, it's just, I just give up because, hey, last I checked, studies show that you learn the difference between right and wrong at the age of 2. So even though you're seeing your parent doing something that is unsightly or they shouldn't be doing, you're probably going to know that's probably not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So, some people, take a little bit longer to learn those lessons, sometimes it's going to be a little bit difficult for that, but you're right. It is absolutely a choice to do differently, to break those generational curses. And I wish that they used the term generational curse back in earlier times when we were growing up, because all these things are not new. All these things were happening. We just didn't have words for them.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You didn't have words for them. And then, you sit up in here at a certain age, you're like, oh, shoot, that's what that was. I wasn't going bonkers. I really was experiencing that. We didn't know what gaslighting was. I mean, we knew what it was, but it was the last time. When was the first time we started hearing the word gaslighting? What was that, like a year ago? I mean, it's amazing all the things that we have that's popped up into situations since 2020, right?
Wow.
It lifted the lid on a lot of things.
That's true.
It told you a lot about yourself and everybody around you.
Oh yeah.
Because it's amazing when you ain't got nothing else to do but focus on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sometimes you look at that person and be like, I don't think I like you that much. So yeah, it's just, I tell you, those beginning relationships, they do set a foundation for how you operate in relationships, whether how you do it or how you choose not to do it, right?
Absolutely.
Now, I've never heard of a positive scenario in which, well, it doesn't mean that it's not true, because that's what 2020 is there for, 48 hours. You get what I'm getting at. Sometimes people do have good situations and they just do the wrong thing. I'd like to think that maybe the percentage is low on that, because I think if you're in a healthy situation, you're not going to say do unhealthy things unless there's some other thing going on there that we just haven't covered today. But I think the chances are good. It's just way too many caveats in the world, isn't it? My goodness.
It is. It's a lot. It is.
Like, you're like, let me think about that. Oh, goodness. I don't know how we make it, honestly.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know how we do it. Lord have mercy. But just trying to say that overall, the healthy foundation should yield healthier results. Yeah, I like that. This is why it's good to have, the adjectives and words, because it may be ish, may not be exact. So definitely, I think that is really important. Those first relationships, that bonding, that participation is so important, so crucial, and can really be an inhibitor to a relationship when we're talking, women to women. Our experiences really do make us. They really do. So. Yeah. So of course, when you have all of these things that can be so excruciatingly challenging, you want an off ramp, right? I mean, you want a way to please give me some relief. So I'm thinking some of the ways that you can have some of those reliefs is to look for some way to resolve. And so you had mentioned something which, I love that phrase, a reason, a season, and a lifetime, because you have to take inventory. You take inventory of your job, you take inventory of your personal aspects, you take inventory of your romantic relationships. You got to take inventory of your friends. You got to take inventory of those associates, that are around you, because they are just as important to how your day-to-day feeling, emotions go as anything else that you could be ever working on or doing or in charge of. I think I covered every aspect, right? So it's important to take inventory. And I say this all the time. That is like my favorite phrase right now, besides streamlining. I love streamlining. I love organization and things that are just love it. It's a great thing. Anyways, what were we talking about? Yeah. Something about inventory. Inventory, taking a look. It's okay to do that. It's okay to clean the cobwebs out. Sometimes you got to, make sure, is this person still there? Are they there for me? Am I still feeling good about myself? Am I still, being in a position where I am potentially going in any kind of direction that uplifts myself? Is this person putting a drag on me? Are they taking out the energy that I can be putting towards doing great things in the world? It's important to take inventory. Just as if you would take inventory of how many shoes you got, clothes you got, your spring collection, your summer collection. You get the point. Take inventory of those people. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree with that. And I don't think we do that enough. What I'm experiencing in my personal life is that I want things to be better. I want things to be greater. I'm ready for the new and improved me. So as I'm on this journey, I feel like I'm going up a mountaintop. And as I'm going up the climax, I find myself having less and less people with me because everybody doesn't have that same mentality. Everybody doesn't, see life the same way.
Right.
And I'm starting to become okay with that. At one point in time, it really bothered me because I didn't want to be by myself. I wanted all these groups and droves of people to come with me, but it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So, as I said before, I'm just grateful for the people that are in my life. And I'm just excited about the connections that are to come because I believe that every connection is a divine connection.
Absolutely.
So whether it's seasonal, and I've had a lot of seasonal relationships, or if it's something that's long-term lasting, I want to get whatever I can get out of it. I want to give whatever I can give to help to grow and mature.
Because there's a lesson to be learned in all of them, isn't it? I mean, even your toxic ones, there's a lesson to be learned there.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And it gives you not only a lesson for how you may operate for yourself and making sure that, hey, I don't want to go down that road again, but also just checking yourself as well. Sometimes we got to check ourselves, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I've had to do a lot of soul searching and say, is it me? Is it me? Is it me? So absolutely, you got to do that.
What's the common denominator?
Yes. And I made mistakes in relationships. I haven't always been the best friend or the best supporter or, said the right thing. I remember one time I had a pretty good friend. We were really close. And she had to move away. She had some things going on in her life. And we just, all of a sudden, we just stopped having contact with each other. And I didn't really understand what happened.
Right.
Years later, we ended up connecting through social media. Okay. She told me that I had said something to her that just totally hurt her to the core.
Wow.
And she didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I said, are you really serious right now? I was so hurt because I said, why didn't you tell me? And she said what I said. I don't even remember saying it. Wow. I'm not saying that I didn't say it, but I don't remember saying it. And I said, I wish you would not have let this much time go by and not tell me that I did something to hurt you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was a few years before we had reconnected again. So needless to say, our relationship is not the same, anymore. So, definitely take care of your relationships, nurture your relationships, but understand that, some relationships are what they are.
Yeah, that's true. And I said, wow, sometimes, there's a lesson to be in that too, because irregardless, if it wasn't a relationship that could withstand having that conversation, then it really definitely was maybe a reason, maybe slightly a season, and although it is very challenging, I think, to go through something like that, I think there's something in there, in regards to if they were not able to have that conversation, then maybe it wasn't meant to go beyond a certain point, but you apologize, you move on, and that's all you really can do, right? Because it's kind of hard to go back and take back whatever,
Right. And like I said, I didn't remember.
Right.
And I know she was going through a lot at that time. So it's possible maybe I said something and she interpreted it that way. So, I just really wish she had just, said something to me when it happened.
Yeah. And, hey, we know now, right? Live and learn, and absolutely what you're doing, and Godspeed, and hopefully everything goes okay for her, and then we just move on. I think you're a great friend, so
thank you. Thanks. I need that. I need all the cheers I can get.
I even got my celebration glass, so
I love it. It's fancy.
Yeah.
Is it from your collection? Is that one from your collection?
No, not that collection. I'll be putting that out too. And
okay.
But it's definitely one that I had from a prior that inspired some other things. So.
Okay, alrighty. To be continued.
Yes. So, yeah, wow. Well, so definitely inventory, right? Season, reason, and a lifetime. I
Yes,
mean, that really works to everything, honestly, right? I mean,
it does.
I can't think of too many things that doesn't, but yeah. And when you talk about that mountaintop concept, it's true, because sometimes at the peak of the point, there's but so much space and so much room there. Like, you only have enough room for the people who are
Oh,
meant
yeah.
to be there. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah, people are going to be like flipping off down the side of the slope. They don't
Mm-hmm.
belong. There's only but
Mm-hmm.
so much room, and it's only room for those people. So,
It's true.
God doesn't make any mistakes. That's what they say, right? So there's a reason for everything. And you take the lesson, and you take the lesson. Some of us have like lessons that we have to keep learning. Some of us were like, I got a hat already. I don't want no more lessons. No longer. I got it. But that's important too, and to be able to really self-assess, like, and I've talked about this on my podcast, and I'm sure I've mentioned it somewhere here on this platform too, but in regards to self-assessment and reflection, and you being able to do that, even if you can't, really connect with what is being said, but being able to take that in for what it is and learn from it and move forward, and that's the best that you can do. And then you're cognizant of whatever, and then you move on. And then again, when you're dealing with a situation, maybe that has an unhealed situation, an experience at the time, like we talked about, sometimes, like you said, you can look at things from a different lens, that it's not in that way. If you interpreted something a certain way, usually what you want to do, right, is to kind of like, did I hear you correctly? Or,
Right.
talk about that, But when you're unhealed and you're dealing with trauma experiences, sometimes you can't take that in. And, so yeah, and you may lose people along the way. And it doesn't mean that the person that you lose is always a loss. And it doesn't mean that the person that you lose isn't a loss. So, so I just say Godspeed, and hopefully that there's been healing there. And, and look, she was able to get to a point where she was able to talk about it when she was, and then maybe that's healing in itself.
So, hopefully so.
We party on. So now that we have talked and covered the gamut, I think, about pitfalls and challenges, and I'm pretty sure that there's so many more that can probably
cover. My goodness, yes.
You can probably talk about each one for like an hour and a half, maybe two even, and of course, community, we want to know what you think as well. I mean, really want to know your feelings and your thoughts about, the pitfalls of relationships, especially in particular to, women relationships, and how we navigate with each other, because, we are in a unique position in forming of a sisterhood, and there's so many things that really are common for us than not, so we really got to handle those pitfalls,
Oh, yes.
I would love, drop in the comment section, what you think are maybe some pitfalls. If you agree with some of the ones that we said, let us know, but just would like to know your thoughts on that as well. It would be really interesting to see some dialogue and conversation in that, because when we do better, know better, we grow better, right?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Why not? It's a community here. That's what we do here. We talk. We give out pearls of wisdom and joy and laughter, and then hopefully we get it back too. So we'd love to know. So, of course, now that we've talked about the pitfalls and the challenges and the not so fun, so great stuff, let's talk about the celebrations. I love the celebrations. That's why I got this glass.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I like to celebrate. And one thing about it, it's a beautiful thing about women, and that's so particular to our unions of women, is the sisterhood, the feeling, embraced, and that you're included. And oh my gosh, just feeling like, someone's got your back. Right? Someone who has maybe experienced some of the things and the challenges that you have, whether it be, maybe starting a family, knowing when to get married, dealing with other, situations maybe with the family, there is camaraderie there. And looking at things that help with our self-esteem, having a good girl tribe or good woman tribe, it's immensely important, because although we may have come into this world alone, going through the world, it would be better to have someone to ride this ride with you,
Absolutely.
So I just love that in celebration. I think that when you have all of that, when you have your tribe of people who are there for you and support you and authentically care for you, care for your well-being, check in on you, all of these things, you're talking about a boost of self-esteem and an increase of confidence in yourself and the way that you walk in this world. And all of those things could lead to a lifetime of support, so why wouldn't you want those things, right? But you got to get through those pitfalls so you can be in that celebration area. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Celebration is something we don't do enough of. It's easy to point fingers and find negative things. Sometimes it's easy to, look at the good things, but we just simply don't celebrate enough. And I just really believe that, especially with everything that our world has gone through the last couple of years, that we absolutely need to take a step back and start celebrating.
Yes.
So, as women in particular, I don't think it's as challenging for men, maybe so, but they seem to handle it a little bit differently than we do. But for men, they can come together, whether they know each other or not. They can always find that common thread, sports, or absolutely sports. And
or driving us crazy.
Yes, they can come together, laugh, joke, and you would think that they were, high school buddies or something, and they're like, "Oh, I just met this dude over here," But but for women, it's sometimes it's a little less easy for us to connect. We have these walls up, we have those barriers up, we have whatever vices, who's talking about me, who's looking at me, why she eyeing me up and down like that, who does she think she is? Oh, she just thinks she's somebody. And so it's all these things going on in our mind, all these voices, and we've got to stop blocking out those negative voices, ladies. There's ladies that are watching this. If there's men that's watching this, tell your significant other, you need to block out those negative voices, because those negative voices are only going to take you to a road you don't want to go down. And I have to be honest, I've done that. I've been in situations where I'm sitting in a room and I see somebody coming through the door. I'm like, what she got that on for? Where does she think she going? I'm like, it's just, I don't know what it is about women that
you wrong. You're just wrong.
I've done it. Hey, you said to keep it real, we're keeping it real. I've done that. And the sad part is I wish I was bold enough to wear that hat, or to put on that beautiful necklace, or to wear those vibrant colors. So I just think we need to celebrate the victories. We need to celebrate even the losses. I talked a little bit about losses, and you may say, well, how do you celebrate the losses? You celebrate the fact that you made it through it. I can sit here today. I've had a lot of losses, ladies and gentlemen, but I can celebrate the fact today that I'm here. I'm in my right frame of mind. I'm able to talk to you guys. I'm able to smile, and this is not a fake smile. Right. So, we got to celebrate when we can. We got to edify one another. When somebody's doing something good, tell them. Hey, you're doing a good job. I really like that. And if they're doing something that maybe is not so good, help them. Don't talk about them. Don't look at them and say, oh, why did they do it this way? Why didn't they use that color? Why did they put that person up there? Why she got her in there? Don't do that. Help. Yeah. If you're watching this and you're being judgmental, why don't you reach out to April at the Motivation Suite community and say, hey, I've got some ideas. I'd like to sponsor what you're doing. I'm sure she would love to hear, that. So, come on, we've got to build one another up. There's plenty for everybody to get something, and I think you and I have kind of talked offline. We've got a lot of people doing a lot of things. We got a lot of people with their hands in a lot of different things, but there's still people that are not being reached. Right. Thankfully, you've got this platform. People will see this, hear this. Some will laugh, some will resonate, some will, maybe like, oh, that's not for me. And that's okay. Right. But there's a lot of people that are still out there that have no idea how to have a healthy relationship, that are in a relationship that's pulling them down, that are the problem in the relationship. So we've got to celebrate those good times and just, be able to lift one another up.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about taking it home. That's our outro. We out. And I love the shameless plug. Yes. Let's reach out. Let's work together. And you're so right. I mean, look, I've never understood the concept of where everyone thinks there's only got to be one person, right? I mean, you know how much the world needs diversity, how much the world needs uniqueness. And this is diversity in all aspects and delivery and the way that you talk about things and share about things. You could always find something that resonates with you. And, one of the singular important things that are needed in this world is communication. Absolutely. I mean, we know what's going on right now because of lack of a whole lot of communication. Yes. And this will continue to be an issue to the end of time if you continue to keep walking in that way, And so, communication is so important. Relationships are so important. And it was just so important to really think about it. I've said important a few times, so this is very important, so listen up. Okay. But it is really, truly an impactful element to really just sit down and just take a look at what we're doing here, and who we're doing it with. And why are we doing it with them? So that's true. I mean, these are important things to really think about if you want to live your life, or as I share, a lifestyle that's enriched by motivation, inspiration, mentorship. You have to walk the walk as well as talk the talk, but action always happen. And things cannot move in the direction that they need to go, which is in a positive direction, if you don't take the action to get it that way. And everybody has got the power to do that, And so, dealing with a lot of those pitfalls, even within us as individuals, it doesn't have to necessarily connect just to relationships, just in ourselves, getting a handle of those things, getting yourself healed up, getting yourself in a position where you can walk in a path of positivity is important. No one's saying that there's a such thing as a perfection in that, because there's no such thing. You can still have fun and be positive. I'm having a ball here, and I'm not drinking anything. Water. You know what I'm saying? So, you've got to pull from that. You just have to. I mean, this world and this life is a very long one when you are unhappy. And we all have different things that happen and occur to us at different stages in our lives. And if we pull more together, because these are things that are more alike than not alike, just imagine the place we would be, in society. Imagine the amount of empowerment and inspiration you would be reading into the world. I mean, and you can't tell me we don't need more of that, Yes. I'll never believe it. And look, we set the demand, right? So when you're concerned about certain things that are out there that don't seem to really, feed well into the positive way of doing things, then why are you participating in it? That could be watching it, that could be looking at it, that could be doing the things that they're doing. We set the demand, right? So, now sometimes I will go back and say, we all have a variety of ways of how we do things. And if the person is not causing any harm, and you can get a laugh, or you can get a piece of something that you can walk out of that may just save your life that day. Yeah. Hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. But we set the demands, right? And so as we set the demands on others, we need to demand of ourselves as well. So true. Because you can't expect others to show up for you if you don't show up for yourself, and then also participate in the showing up with them. This doesn't work any other way. Sure. So, and look, why do we have to wait until you're a certain age to get this? If you're unfortunate and don't have this ability to grab this information as you're growing up, then, I don't know, 18, 19-year-old sounds like a pretty good age to start. As long as you're on this planet, there's a lot of time. Yes. Absolutely. And if no one else goes, look, karma is something. So whatever you put out into the universe is what you're going to get back. One way or another. It always boomerangs back. Well, Mia, I am so glad that you were able to, tune in with me on this video. I'm so excited that we got a chance to do this together. You know how ecstatic I am about this. I've been doing it so long.
Yes.
So I'm just so appreciative of that. And like I said in the last video, you got to celebrate individuals as well as giving them their flowers. I love that new phrasing. I think that came out in 2020 because we needed to find a way to say, why are you waiting until a certain point of time where the person can't hear what you're saying, right? Give it to them now, So as I said then, and I say now, and I say forever, I give you flowers now, because at the end of the day, oh my gosh, look at all the time we have had. And we had our, times and our seasons and our friendship. It would not have been able to last if we had not been able to go through those and work through those in a way that now gets us to where we are now, right? And as far as I'm concerned, we're family. So that's what you do what you can for family, right? You do what you do.
That's true.
And your family I chose. So, that I've heard somewhere it was so funny. It's like, family, you can't choose them, but you can choose your friends. And you can make them your family. And it's so true. So, just making sure that you're looking at all those things for sure is really important to get the best out of life, because you only got one of them. So
that's true.
At least that's what they tell us. I don't know about past lives or anything, but yeah. And wouldn't that be something? I would not want to do this again, though. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, we can hang out in heaven. We talked about that last time, didn't we? We can hang out up there. So we don't have to fight back our way up again. So, yes. Is there anything you would like to share as we part ways?
I have just enjoyed this conversation on today. I'm so grateful for you and for what you're doing, how you are inspiring, motivating people. And I'm just expecting the Motivation Suite community just to blow up. So to the listening audience, type your comments, share this, let other people know that the Motivation Suite community is here and is here to stay. Yes. I look forward to coming back on and to sharing, laughing, learning with each and every one of you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I love you.
Okay, love you too.
Yes. So everybody, hey, I think we're out. Best outro ever. Subscribe, give a video a like, and leave a positive comment. Tell us your thoughts, and we wish you well. Be blessed, be safe, and just keep doing what you're doing. And until next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.